I'm recording this from a small studio apartment in Liverpool, a place I haven't called home in nearly 6 years. But tonight, I couldn't sleep. Because earlier today, I got an email that reopened every scar I thought had faded. The subject line just said, "You should know." No name, no greeting, just that. And it was from a guy I'd never heard of, some French expat living in Chiang Mai. The email was short. "I think we've both been seeing the same girl. Her name's Elisa. I'm sorry, mate, just thought you should know." My heart sank. I actually laughed at first, that broken kind of laugh when your body knows before your mind does. And then it hit. Hard. I'd thought I was the only one who really saw her. She'd show up at my place drenched in sweat, all radiant chaos and charm, grinning like she'd just biked through hell just to get to me. I thought that meant something. But now I know I wasn't her destination. I was just a stop. One of 4, apparently. And the worst part? I still don't hate her. I hate the man I became to keep her. If you've ever loved someone who wasn't truly yours, I see you. And if you're watching this, please hit like, drop a comment, and tell me where you're tuning in from. I read every single one. And if you're one of the amazing folks who keep showing up for these stories, a super thank you. You're the reason I keep sharing, even when it hurts. What happened with Elisa changed how I see love, loyalty, and myself. But to explain why, let me take you back to where it all started. I'm sitting across from Thanapa on this rooftop bar in Pattaya, and she just whispered something that made my chest tighten. "You're the only one who's ever seen me," she said, her fingers tracing the rim of her beer bottle. The city lights flickered below us like scattered diamonds, and I wanted to believe every word. She smelled of sweat and jasmine, that mix that happens when you've been riding through Bangkok traffic all day. I was in love. Completely, ridiculously in love. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, though I didn't really want an answer. Sometimes the best moments are the ones you don't question. Other men, they see what they want to see. You see me tired. You see me happy. You see me real. She took a sip of her beer and looked out over the balcony. "That's different." I reached across the table and touched her hand. Her skin was still warm from the ride up here. "Maybe because you are different." She laughed, but not the way Thai women usually laugh when they're being polite. This was genuine, raw. "Different how? You're not trying to be anything for me. You just are." That night feels like a movie scene now. Perfect lighting, perfect dialogue, perfect girl. But movies don't show you what happens after the credits roll. They don't show you the slow unraveling that comes later. Let me tell you how we met. It was 3 months earlier, and I just moved into this condo in the Yomtien area. Nothing fancy, but it had a view of the ocean and enough space for an old man like me to spread out. I'd sold my auto parts business back in Austin after my second divorce, and Pattaya seemed like the right place to figure out what comes next. I wasn't looking for anything serious. Hell, I wasn't looking for anything at all. It was almost midnight when my doorbell rang. I opened it expecting maybe a drunk neighbor or someone with the wrong apartment. Instead, there was this girl in a motorcycle helmet, holding a plastic bag that smelled like heaven. "Pad Krapow?" she said, lifting the bag. I didn't order anything. She checked the receipt taped to the bag, then looked at my door number. "You are Clarence?" "Yeah, that's me." "Your neighbor, he ordered for you. Said you just moved in and may be hungry." I took the bag and tried to hand her some cash for a tip. She shook her head. Already paid. But she didn't leave. She just stood there, pulling off her helmet. Her hair was stuck to her forehead with sweat, and she had these eyes that looked like they'd seen too much for someone who couldn't be older than 25. "You from America?" she asked. "Texas." "Cowboys," she said, smiling for the first time. "Not exactly. I sold car parts." "Ah, fix things." "Sometimes." She nodded like that made perfect sense. "I deliver food, also fix things, different things." I don't know why, but I didn't want her to leave. "You want some water?" It's hot out there. She looked surprised. You sure? Come on up. That was my first mistake. Or maybe my first piece of luck. I still can't decide. Her name was Thanapa, and she worked for one of those food delivery apps. She'd been doing it for 2 years, ever since she came down from Ubon Ratchathani to make better money in the tourist areas. She wasn't like the other girls I'd seen around Pattaya. She didn't giggle at everything I said or touch my arm every 5 seconds. She sat on my couch, drank her water, and told me about the motorbike accident she'd had the week before. Guy in a BMW, he doesn't look before turning. I hit the ground, food everywhere. She showed me a scrape on her elbow that was still healing. Customer was angry. I told him, be angry at BMW man, not me. What did the customer say? He said sorry. Ordered again next day and tipped big. She finished her water and stood up. Thai people, we understand accidents. Farang people, sometimes they understand too. Farang? Foreigners. White people. Like you. She left that night, but something had shifted. I found myself ordering food more often than I needed to, hoping she'd be the one to deliver it. Sometimes it was her, sometimes it wasn't. But when it was, she'd always stay for a few minutes. We'd talk about her work, my life in Texas, the differences between American and Thai culture, simple stuff, real stuff. Why you come to Thailand? She asked one night, sitting on my balcony with another glass of water. Got tired of being alone in a place where I knew everyone. Better to be alone in a place where nobody knows you? Sometimes, yeah. She considered this. I think maybe you're not really alone here. What do you mean? You have me now. For water breaks. That's when I knew I was in trouble. Not because she was beautiful, though she was. Not because she was young, though she was that too. But because she made being 59 feel like it wasn't the end of something. It felt like maybe it was the beginning. After that night, she started showing up even when I hadn't ordered food. She'd text me when she was in the area. You hungry? She'd ask. But we both knew it wasn't really about food anymore. One evening, she arrived without her delivery bag, just her helmet and that smile that was becoming too familiar. No food today? I asked. Finished work early, thought maybe you want company. We sat on the balcony watching the sunset over the Gulf of Thailand. The sky turned orange, then pink, then purple, and neither of us said much. But it didn't feel awkward. It felt right. Clarence, she said finally. Yeah? You remind me of my uncle. I felt something drop in my stomach. Your uncle? He was a good man. Took care of my family when my father died. Always made sure we had what we needed. She turned to look at me. But you're not my uncle. Before I could ask what she meant, she leaned over and kissed me. Not a soft, tentative kiss. A real kiss. The kind that means something. When she pulled away, I was staring at her like an idiot. What was that for? Because I wanted to. And the uncle thing? Just means I trust you. She stood up and grabbed her helmet. I should go. Wait, Thanapa. She stopped at the door. Will I see you tomorrow? Maybe, if you're hungry. But I knew she'd be back whether I was hungry or not. And I knew I'd be waiting either way. That night, lying in bed, I thought about my ex-wives back in Austin. Both of them had said the same thing when they left, that I didn't know how to let people in. That I kept everything on the surface. Maybe they were right. But with Thanapa, it felt different. Like she was seeing past all the walls I'd built and finding something worth staying for. I should have paid attention to what she said about trust. I should have asked more questions about why a girl like her would be interested in a man like me. But when you're lonely for as long as I'd been, you don't question good things when they happen. You just hold on and hope they last. Looking back now, that kiss was the moment everything changed. Not just for me, but for her too. I became someone she could use, and she became someone I couldn't live without. But I didn't know that then. All I knew was that for the first time in years, I was excited to wake up the next day. The rooftop bar, the confession, The way she looked at me like I was the only man in the world, it all started with that kiss, with that moment of trust that I completely misunderstood. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. Not because I had to, but because I couldn't stop thinking about that kiss. I made coffee and sat on the balcony, waiting for the city to come alive below me. Pattaya looks different at dawn, quieter, more honest somehow. My phone buzzed around 7. A text from Thanapa. "Good morning, cowboy. You awake?" I typed back faster than I should have. "Been up for hours. Coffee's ready if you want some. On my way." 20 minutes later, she was at my door. No helmet this time, just her hair pulled back in a ponytail and that same smile from the night before. "You really made coffee?" she asked, stepping inside. I really made coffee. She followed me to the kitchen and watched as I poured 2 cups. Most farang men I meet, they don't cook. They don't clean. They just want someone to take care of them. I've been taking care of myself for 60 years. Not going to stop now. 60? She raised an eyebrow. I thought maybe 55. 59, but close enough. "Good genes," she said, taking the coffee cup from my hands. Our fingers brushed, and I felt that same jolt from the night before. We sat on the balcony again, this time watching the morning traffic build up on the street below. Delivery drivers on motorcycles weaving between cars, vendors setting up their carts, the whole city shifting into gear. "Tell me something," I said. "What did you do before the delivery job?" "Different things. Worked in a restaurant for a while. Sold clothes at Chattachak Market in Bangkok. Tried to learn English at night school." She sipped her coffee. "But delivery job is better. Independent. No boss telling me what to do every minute. Must be dangerous though, all those motorbikes on the road. Everything in Thailand is dangerous if you think about it too much. Better to just be careful and keep moving." I wanted to ask more, but she seemed to sense that and changed the subject. "What about you? What made you sell your business?" "Got tired of fighting with people about money all day. Got tired of Texas heat. Got tired of waking up in the same bed, looking at the same ceiling, wondering if this was all there was. And now? Now I'm looking at a different ceiling." She laughed. "Maybe that's progress." "Maybe." After she left that morning, I realized I didn't know much about her beyond the basics. Where she lived, what her family was like, what she did when she wasn't delivering food or sitting on my balcony. But somehow, that didn't bother me. There was something refreshing about being with someone who didn't need to fill every silence with her life story. I'd moved to Pattaya after selling my business because I needed distance from everything familiar. Austin had become a museum of my failures. The house where Sarah and I fought about money for 3 years. The office where Linda used to call me during lunch breaks before she decided I was too old to change. Even the bars where I'd drink with other divorced men who talked about their glory days like they were reading from a script. Pattaya was supposed to be temporary, a place to figure out what comes after a life that hadn't gone according to plan. I wasn't one of those guys who came here looking for a 20-year-old wife. I'd seen enough of them at the hotel bars, buying drinks for girls who smiled with their mouths but not their eyes. That wasn't me. At least, I didn't think it was. But Thanapa was different. She never asked me for anything, never made me feel like I was being evaluated or managed. When she showed up at my door, it felt like she genuinely wanted to be there. A week after the coffee morning, she started coming by after her shifts ended, usually around 9 or 10 at night, still wearing her delivery uniform, her hair damp with sweat from riding around the city all day. "Don't you have anywhere else to be?" I asked one night, as she settled into what had become her spot on the couch. "Do you want me to have somewhere else to be?" "No, just wondering. I have an apartment with 2 other girls. They watch Thai soap operas very loud and bring different men home every night. Here is quieter. So I'm the quiet option." "You're the good option," she said, looking at me directly. "Different thing." These conversations became the best part of my day. She'd tell me about her deliveries, the customers who tipped well, the ones who complained about everything, the neighborhoods that were hard to navigate. I'd tell her about Austin, about the auto parts business, about the ways Thailand was nothing like what I'd expected. "What did you expect?" she asked. "I don't know. Beaches, cheap beer, old guys playing golf." "No golf?" "I hate golf." "Good. Golf is boring." "What's not boring?" She thought about this. Riding fast on empty roads. Thunderstorms. Good food when you're really hungry. She paused. Conversations like this. That's when I knew I was falling for her. Not because of anything dramatic, but because of the simple pleasure of being understood by someone who didn't have any reason to lie to me. The first crack in my certainty came about a month after we'd been spending time together. I'd started thinking of her as my girlfriend, though we'd never talked about it in those terms. She'd stay over sometimes, curled up next to me watching Netflix on my laptop. In the mornings, she'd make Thai-style iced coffee and tell me about her dreams, which were always vivid and strange. But then there were the gaps. Days when she'd disappear without explanation. When I'd text her, she'd respond hours later with something vague like busy with work or family situation. I told myself it was normal. She had a life outside of my apartment. That was healthy. One evening, she showed up later than usual. It was almost midnight. "Sorry," she said, dropping her helmet by the door. "Crazy day." "What happened?" "Just work stuff. Lot of orders tonight." But something was different. She seemed distracted, kept checking her phone every few minutes. When I asked if everything was okay, she said she was just tired. "Maybe I should go home tonight," she said. "Early day tomorrow." "Sure, if that's what you want." But after she left, I found myself standing on the balcony, watching the street below. I saw her bike parked in front of the 7-Eleven across from my building. She was talking to someone, a Thai man I didn't recognize. Their conversation looked intense, not casual. After a few minutes, she got on her bike and drove away, but not in the direction of her apartment. I told myself it wasn't my business. We weren't married. We weren't even officially dating. But the doubt had been planted. The next time I saw her, 2 days later, I tried to bring it up casually. "Everything okay the other night? You seemed stressed." "Just work problems. My manager, he's difficult sometimes." "I thought you said you liked being independent." "I am independent, but still have to deal with the app company. Sometimes they change the rules, make it harder to make money." It was a reasonable explanation, but something in her tone made me think there was more to it. That's when I made my first real mistake. Instead of asking her directly what was going on, I started paying closer attention to the things she didn't say. The phone calls she'd take in the bathroom. The way she'd sometimes flinch when I touched her unexpectedly, like she'd been thinking about something else. The new clothes that appeared in her wardrobe, clothes that looked expensive for someone making delivery wages. "Nice dress," I said one evening when she showed up wearing something I hadn't seen before. "Thank you. Got it from my friend." "Must be a good friend. She works in Bangkok, makes more money than me." Again, reasonable. But the doubt was growing. I think what bothered me most was how natural it felt to be with her, even as I was starting to question everything. When we were together, really together, all the uncertainty disappeared. She'd curl up against me while we watched movies, and it felt like the most normal thing in the world. She'd make jokes about my terrible Thai pronunciation, and I'd laugh harder than I had in years. In those moments, everything made sense. It was only later, alone in my apartment, that the questions would start again. Who was the man she'd been talking to? Why did her stories about work sometimes contradict each other? And why did I care so much when we'd never promised each other anything? Looking back now, I realized that was the beginning of the pattern that would define everything that came after. The perfect moments when I believed completely, followed by the long stretches when doubt ate away at everything I thought I knew, but I wasn't ready to see it then. I was too busy falling in love with a woman who might not have existed at all. The lies started small, so small that I almost missed them entirely. "Where did you go last night?" I asked one morning when she showed up at my door with coffee and that smile that always made me forget why I'd been worried. "Worked late. Big order to Jomtien Beach area, then had to go all the way to central Pattaya for pickup." I nodded, but something nagged at me. The night before, I'd been unable to sleep and had walked down to the 7-Eleven around 11. I'd seen her bike parked outside a karaoke bar on Soy Buakau. Not delivering food, just parked, like she was inside. Must have been a good tip to make it worth the long ride. Yeah, customer was happy. She handed me the coffee and kissed my cheek, and I let it go. What was I going to do? Tell her I'd been wandering the streets like some lovesick teenager checking up on her. But the seed of doubt was planted. A week later, it happened again. She'd said she was visiting her friend in Rayong, about an hour south of Pattaya. But when I checked Instagram that night, there she was in someone's story, clearly at a club in Bangkok. Not Rayong, Bangkok, 2 hours north. I screenshotted the image before I could think better of it. In the photo, she was laughing, her arm around another girl I didn't recognize, drinks on the table in front of them. She looked happy, relaxed. Nothing like the tired delivery driver who showed up at my apartment most nights. When she came over the next evening, I tried to bring it up casually. How was your friend in Rayong? Good. We didn't do much, just talked. That's nice. Quiet night. Very quiet. I showed her the screenshot. This you? For just a moment, her expression changed. A flicker of something panic, anger. Then it was gone, replaced by that same easy smile. My friend changed her mind. We went to Bangkok instead. You said you were in Rayong. I said I was going to visit my friend. We went to Bangkok to visit different friend. Technically, she was right, but it felt wrong. The explanation was too smooth, too quick, like she'd been ready for this question. Why didn't you just tell me you were going to Bangkok? Does it matter? I guess not. But it did matter. Not because she'd gone to Bangkok, but because she'd let me believe something that wasn't true. And because when I'd caught her, she hadn't apologized or explained. She just adjusted the story. The phone calls started around the same time. Always in Thai, always in the bathroom, or on the balcony where she thought I couldn't hear. When I asked who she'd been talking to, it was always work or family. Her mother calling from Ubon Ratchathani, her cousin who lived in Chonburi, the app company with new delivery assignments. But the conversations didn't sound like work calls. They were too long, too intimate. I caught fragments, sometimes laughter, whispered words I couldn't understand, the tone that people use when they're talking to someone they care about. One night, she fell asleep on my couch while watching a movie. Her phone was on the coffee table, and when it lit up with a notification, I saw the message preview. Miss you too, baby. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. The message was in English. From a contact saved as M, my heart started pounding. I looked at the Napa, peaceful and beautiful in the blue light from the TV, and I felt something crack inside my chest. Who was M? And why was he texting my girlfriend at midnight? I didn't sleep that night. I kept playing the message over in my head, trying to convince myself it could be innocent. A female friend with a nickname, a family member who lived abroad, someone from her past who didn't know about me. But the baby part, that was hard to explain away. The next morning, she woke up stretching and yawning, like nothing had happened. I should go home, shower, get ready for work, she said, gathering her things. Thanapa. Yeah? Are you seeing anyone else? She stopped moving. What do you mean? I mean, are you dating other people? Are we exclusive? Or is this more casual than I thought? Why, you ask? Because I'm starting to care about you. A lot. And I need to know where I stand. She sat down next to me on the bed. Clarence, you know I care about you too. That's not what I asked. What we have is special. You don't need to worry about other people. But are there other people? There are always other people, but they don't matter like you matter. It was the kind of answer that sounded reassuring but didn't actually answer anything. I wanted to push harder, but I was afraid of what I might hear. Instead, I did what men do when they're scared of losing something. I tried to become indispensable. I was thinking, I said as she was getting ready to leave, your motorbike's pretty old. Probably not the safest thing for riding around the city all night. It works fine, but what if something happens? What if it breaks down in the middle of nowhere? Then I call mechanic. Or, I said, pulling out my wallet, you could let me help you get something better, something safer. She looked at the money in my hand like it might bite her. I don't need money, Clarence. It's not charity. I care about you. I want you to be safe. How much? Enough for a good used bike, maybe a Honda Click or something reliable. She took the money, but slowly. This is loan? It's a gift. I don't like gifts. Then call it a loan. You can pay me back when you can. She folded the bills and put them in her purse. Then she kissed me, soft and quick. Thank you. After she left, I felt better for about an hour. Like I'd solved something. But then the doubt crept back in. Why had she taken the money if she didn't need it? And why had she hesitated? 2 days later, she showed up on a brand new Honda PCX. Not the used bike I'd expected, but something that probably cost twice what I'd given her. Where did you get the extra money? I asked. Saved some, and my friend helped. Which friend? Does it matter? There it was again. That phrase that shut down all conversation. Does it matter? Like my questions were unreasonable. Like caring about the details of her life was somehow out of line. But I was in too deep to stop caring. Every morning I woke up thinking about her. Every night I fell asleep wondering if she was thinking about me. The gaps in her story became the spaces where my imagination ran wild. Who was M? Who was the friend with money? What did she do during the long stretches when she didn't answer her phone? The worst part was how good things were when we were together. She'd curl up against me while we watched movies, her head on my chest, and I'd feel like the luckiest man alive. She'd make jokes about American culture that were actually funny. She'd listen when I talked about my life in Texas, asking questions that showed she was really paying attention. In those moments, all the doubts seemed paranoid and petty. This was a woman who chose to spend her free time with me, who seemed genuinely happy in my company, who made me feel, for the first time in years, like I wasn't just marking time until I died. But then she'd get a phone call and step outside to take it. Or she'd check her messages and smile at something I couldn't see. Or she'd show up with new jewelry that she couldn't quite explain. Pretty necklace, I said one evening. Thank you. Where'd it come from? My friend gave it to me. For a birthday. Your birthday was 3 months ago. Late birthday present. Always an explanation. Never quite enough to satisfy, but always plausible. Always delivered with that same easy confidence that made me feel like I was the one being unreasonable. I started paying cash for everything when we were together. Dinners, drinks, little trips to the beach. Not because she asked, but because it felt like the only way to keep her attention. If I was paying, she wouldn't need to get money from M or the mysterious friend or whoever else was in her life. You don't have to do this, she said one night as I settled the bill at a seafood restaurant. I want to. Why? Because I care about you. Because I want you to be happy. I am happy. Good. But I wasn't happy. I was anxious all the time, constantly wondering when the other shoe would drop, when she'd stop showing up, when she'd find someone better or more convenient, or just get tired of pretending to care about an old American man with too many questions. The money became a lifeline, not for her, but for me. As long as I was useful, as long as I could provide things she needed, I felt like I had some security, some reason for her to keep coming back. I should have realized what I was becoming, but when you're drowning, you don't question the rope someone throws you. You just hold on and hope it's strong enough to keep you afloat. I need to ask you something, she said one evening, standing in my kitchen with her arms crossed. She'd been quiet all night, picking at her dinner and checking her phone more than usual. What's up? My roommate, she's making problems. Says I make too much noise coming home late. Says her boyfriend doesn't like me there. What kind of problems? She wants me out. Gave me 2 weeks. I set down my beer and looked at her. This was the first time she'd mentioned any issues at home. In fact, She barely talked about her living situation at all. That's rough. You have somewhere else to go? Maybe. I don't know yet. She paused, then looked at me directly. Can I stay here? Just temporary, until I find new place? My heart jumped. This was what I'd been wanting without admitting it to myself. Her here all the time. No more wondering where she went when she left. No more gaps in the story. Of course, how temporary are we talking? Few weeks, maybe 1 month maximum. That's fine. You can stay as long as you need. I pay half utilities. You don't need to do that. Yes, I do. I'm not charity case, Clarence. I know you're not. She smiled then, the first real smile I'd seen from her all evening. Thank you. The next day, she moved in. Not much stuff. Just a suitcase full of clothes, some personal items, and her laptop. It was like she'd been prepared for this moment, everything packed and ready to go. That's it? I asked as she unpacked in my bedroom. I don't need much. Most of my life is on motorbike anyway. What about furniture, pictures, the stuff people usually accumulate? What's the point? Just things to move when you have to leave. There was something sad in the way she said it, like she'd never expected to stay anywhere long enough for possessions to matter. But I pushed the thought away. She was here now. That's what mattered. The first week was perfect, better than perfect. She'd make coffee in the morning before she left for work. I'd cook dinner in the evenings while she showered off the sweat and exhaust from the day. We'd watch Netflix on the couch, her legs draped over mine, talking about the shows or just enjoying the quiet. This is nice, she said one night during a particularly boring Thai drama. Yeah? Having someone to come home to. Haven't had that in a long time. How long? Since I left Ubon. Maybe longer. What about your roommate? That's different. She was just person I split rent with. This is, she gestured at the space between us. This is home. I felt something settle in my chest that I hadn't realized was floating. Home. She'd called it home. We started talking about the future in small ways. Nothing dramatic, just the kind of plans people make when they're thinking beyond next week. You know what I always wanted to do? She said one morning over coffee. What? Open small cafe, nothing fancy. Just good coffee, simple food, place where people can sit and relax. Where would you want to do that? Maybe here in Pattaya, or back in Ubon, closer to family. She looked at me over her cup. You ever think about opening business again? I swore I was done with all that. But maybe with right partner, right location? The way she said it made my pulse quicken. She was talking about us, about a future that included both of us. Maybe, I said, with the right partner. For 2 weeks, I felt like I was living the life I'd come to Thailand to find. Simple, peaceful, connected to someone who seemed to genuinely want to be with me. We'd ride her new motorcycle to different beaches, explore restaurants I'd never tried, spend lazy afternoons reading in the same room without needing to talk. But then, the disappearances started again. I have to work late tonight, she'd say after dinner. Big catering order. Need to make multiple trips. She'd leave around 8 and not come back until after midnight. When I'd ask how it went, she'd say fine, tired, and head straight to the shower. One night, I woke up around 2 in the morning and her side of the bed was empty. I checked the living room, the kitchen, the balcony. Her motorcycle keys were gone. She came back around 4, moving quietly through the apartment like she was trying not to wake me. Where were you? I asked from the bedroom doorway. She jumped. Jesus, you scared me. Sorry. I woke up and you were gone. Couldn't sleep. Went for ride to clear my head. For 3 hours? Drove to beach. Sat and thought about things. What things? Work stuff, family stuff. She walked past me toward the bathroom. I'm going to shower. Thanapa. She stopped at the bathroom door. Are you okay? You seem stressed lately. Just adjusting to living here. It's different than I expected. Different how? More serious, like we're married or something. The way she said married made it sound like a disease. Is that bad? Not bad, just different. She closed the bathroom door, and I heard the shower start. I went back to bed, but I didn't sleep. Something had changed, and I couldn't put my finger on what. The next few days, she seemed distracted. She'd start sentences and not finish them. She'd stare at her phone with an expression I couldn't read. When I'd ask what she was thinking about, she'd say nothing, or just tired. The phone calls increased too, always in Thai, always in the other room. When I'd ask who she'd been talking to, it was always the same answers: work, family, friends. But the conversations were getting longer and more frequent. Sometimes I'd catch her laughing in a way she hadn't laughed with me in weeks. Other times her voice would get low and intense, almost urgent. "Is everything okay with your family?" I asked one evening after she'd spent 20 minutes on the balcony with her phone. "Why?" "You've been talking to them a lot lately. My mother worries when I don't call." "About what?" "About me living with Farang man. About my job. About everything." "What does she think about me?" "She doesn't know about you." That stopped me cold. "What do you mean she doesn't know about me?" "I mean, I haven't told her details. She knows I have friend, but not that we live together." "Why not?" "Because Thai mothers worry. Because she'll ask million questions I don't want to answer." "What kind of questions?" "About your intentions. About marriage. About whether I'm being stupid." "And are you being stupid?" She looked at me for a long moment. "I don't know yet." It was an honest answer, but it hurt more than a lie would have. The breaking point came 3 weeks after she'd moved in. I woke up one morning and found a receipt on the kitchen counter. It was from a hotel in Bangkok, dated 2 days earlier. A nice hotel. The kind that costs more than most Thai people make in a week. "Thanapa," I called out. She was in the shower getting ready for work. "Yeah?" "There's a hotel receipt on the counter." The water stopped running. After a moment, she called back. "What receipt?" "From the Royal Orchid in Bangkok, 2 nights ago." Silence. Then the shower started again. When she came out wrapped in a towel, she looked at the receipt like she'd never seen it before. "Oh, that. I had delivery job in Bangkok. Customer paid for hotel because it was late." "Customer paid for you to stay at the Royal Orchid?" "Rich customer. Felt bad that delivery took so long." "What kind of delivery takes 12 hours?" "Complicated delivery. Had to wait for special item, then bring to different location." I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe her. But the Royal Orchid? For a delivery driver? "Can I see the delivery receipt?" "What?" "If it was a job, there should be a receipt from the app company, right?" Her expression shifted slightly. "I don't keep all that paperwork." "But you kept the hotel receipt." Fell out of my pocket. We stared at each other across the kitchen. I could feel everything hanging in the balance. Push harder and risk losing her completely. Let it go and risk losing myself. "Thanapa, I need you to be honest with me." "I'm honest." "Are you seeing someone else?" "Why you always ask me this?" "Because things don't add up. The calls, the late nights, the money for things you shouldn't be able to afford. I work hard. I save money. Hotel bills, designer clothes. That necklace costs more than you make in a month. You don't know what I make. I know what delivery drivers make." She sat down at the kitchen table, still in her towel. "Clarence, what do you want from me?" "I want the truth." "Truth about what?" "About us. About whether this is real or just convenient for you." "What we have is real." "Then why won't you tell your mother about me? Why do you disappear for hours without explanation? Why do I feel like I only know half of who you are?" She was quiet for a long time. Then she reached across the table and took my hand. "You know who I am when I'm here. Isn't that enough?" "No, it's not enough anymore." She pulled her hand back. "Then maybe I should find new place to live." "That's not what I want." "What do you want?" "I want you to let me all the way in. I want to stop feeling like I'm competing with ghosts." "There are no ghosts." "Then what's in Bangkok? Who's M? Why do you have money you can't explain?" M is my cousin. Your cousin calls you baby? She blinked. When did you see that? Your phone was on the table. The message popped up. You read my messages? I saw a message. I didn't go through your phone. Still not your business. It is my business if we're living together, if we're supposed to be building something. She stood up. I need to get dressed. Thanapa. I need to think about things. She went into the bedroom and closed the door. When she came out, she was dressed for work, helmet in hand. I'll be late tonight, she said without looking at me. How late? I don't know. She left, and I spent the day pacing around the apartment like a caged animal. Every surface reminded me of her. Her coffee cup in the sink, her magazines on the coffee table, her presence in every room. I tried to work on my laptop, tried to read, tried to watch TV. Nothing held my attention. All I could think about was the hotel receipt and the way she'd looked when I asked about it. Not surprised. Not confused. Just caught. She didn't come home that night. I called her around 11. It went straight to voicemail. I texted her around midnight. Are you okay? No response. At 2 a.m, I walked down to the street and looked for her motorcycle. It wasn't there. I didn't sleep. I sat on the balcony watching the city, wondering if this was how it ended, if she'd just disappear one day and leave me with more questions than answers. She came back the next evening while I was making dinner, walked in like nothing had happened. Smells good, she said, setting her helmet on the counter. Where were you last night? Stayed with friend. Needed space to think. What friend? Does it matter? There it was again, the conversation killer. It matters to me. Why? Because I was worried. Because when someone you care about disappears without a word, you wonder if they're okay. I'm okay. Are we okay? She looked at me for a long moment. I don't know. At least it was honest. That night, we lay in bed not touching. Both of us staring at the ceiling. Both of us knowing something had broken that couldn't be fixed with explanations or apologies. Clarence, she said in the dark. Yeah? You're a good man. But maybe we want different things. What do you want? I don't know yet. What do you think I want? Everything. All of me. All my time. All my secrets. And you think that's wrong? I think it's impossible. I turned to look at her, but she was facing away from me. Why is it impossible? Because some people aren't made for everything. Some people are made for right now. And you're right now? I'm trying to be. What does that mean? It means I'm here, tonight. That should be enough. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. I needed to know where she went when she wasn't here. I needed to know who M was and why she had hotel receipts and why she couldn't tell her mother about me. I needed to know if I was the only one or just another one. The next morning she made coffee like always. We sat on the balcony like always. But everything felt different, like we were both waiting for something to end. I found apartment, she said as she was getting ready to leave. Already? My friend knows someone with room available. When? This weekend. That fast? Better to not drag things out. I wanted to argue. I wanted to beg her to stay. I wanted to promise I'd stop asking questions, stop needing so much, stop caring about the parts of her life she wanted to keep private. But I could see in her eyes that the decision was already made. She'd tried living all the way with someone, and it hadn't worked. Maybe it never could have worked. Will I still see you? Of course. Nothing has to change between us. But everything had already changed. We both knew it. The apartment key sitting on the kitchen counter felt like the end of something I'd never really had to begin with. She moved out on a Thursday. 3 suitcases and a laptop bag, same as when she'd moved in. Like the month of living together had left no permanent mark on her belongings. You sure you have everything? I asked, standing in the doorway as she loaded the last bag onto her motorcycle. I think so. If you forgot anything, you can come get it whenever. I know. She looked up at my apartment building, then back at me. Thank you for letting me stay. Thank you for staying. It was the kind of polite conversation strangers have. Neither of us mentioned that nothing had to change between us, even though she'd said it just a few days before. "I'll call you," she said, putting on her helmet. Okay. But she didn't call that day, or the next. By Sunday, I broke down and texted her. "How's the new place?" She responded 3 hours later. "Good. Still getting settled. Want to get dinner this week?" "Maybe. Work is busy right now." It was like talking to a different person. All the warmth and intimacy of the past few months had evaporated, replaced by the kind of careful politeness you use with acquaintances. I gave her space. Told myself she needed time to adjust to living independently again. Told myself that once the awkwardness of the move wore off, things would go back to normal. But normal never came. 2 weeks later, she finally agreed to meet for dinner. A seafood place we'd been to before, back when everything was easy between us. She looked different. Happier, maybe. More relaxed than she'd been during those final weeks at my apartment. "You look good," I said as she sat down across from me. "Thank you. You too. How's the new place?" "Nice. Quiet. My roommate travels a lot for work, so I have it to myself most of the time." "What kind of work does she do?" "Import business. Brings things from China." We ordered food and made small talk about the weather, the traffic, the news. Nothing substantial, nothing real. It felt like we were both following a script. "Thanapa?" I said when the awkwardness became unbearable. "Yeah? Are we okay?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, this feels weird. Like we're strangers. We're adjusting." "To what?" "To being friends instead of living together." Friends. The word hit me like a slap. Is that what we are now? Friends? I thought that's what you wanted. When did I say that? You didn't have to say it. But when someone asks you to choose between them and your privacy, the message is clear. That's not what I was asking. Wasn't it? I thought about it. Maybe it was. Maybe I had been asking her to choose. I just wanted to understand your life. Why? Because I cared about you. Because I thought we were building something together. We were, but some things can't be built the way you want to build them. What does that mean? It means some people need space to breathe, and some people need to know where every breath goes. She wasn't wrong, but it still felt unfair. After dinner, we walked along the beach road. The sun was setting over the Gulf of Thailand, painting everything orange and pink. A month ago, this would have been romantic. Now it felt like a funeral. "Can I ask you something?" I said as we stopped to watch the waves. "Sure. Were you ever really happy living with me?" She was quiet for a long time. "Yes, some moments. But not enough moments? Happiness isn't about counting moments, Clarence. Then what's it about? About being able to be yourself without explaining yourself all the time. And you couldn't be yourself with me? I could be the part of myself you wanted to see. That hurt more than I expected. What part didn't I want to see? The part that needs things you can't give me. Like what? Independence. Mystery. The right to have pieces of my life that belong only to me. And now you have that? Now I have that." We said goodbye in the parking lot. She hugged me, but it felt like the kind of hug you give someone at a funeral. Final. "I'll call you," she said. "When?" "Soon." But soon turned into 2 weeks, then 3. When she finally called, it was to ask if she could borrow my phone charger. Hers had broken, and she was near my apartment. "Of course. Come up." 10 minutes later, she was at my door. Same smile, same smell of jasmine and exhaust, but something was different. She seemed nervous. "You okay?" I asked as she plugged her phone into my charger. "Yeah, just tired. Long day." But she kept checking her phone every few seconds, like she was waiting for something important. "You sure everything's all right?" "Yeah. Why?" "You seem distracted." "Just work stuff." Her phone buzzed. She picked it up immediately, read the message, and smiled. The kind of smile I hadn't seen in months. Warm, genuine, happy. "Good news?" I asked. "Just a friend being silly." But the way she said friend made my stomach drop. Her phone buzzed again. This time she didn't pick it up fast enough, and I saw the message preview on the lock screen. Can't wait to see you tonight, beautiful. Miss you already. The message was from someone saved in her contacts as David. My heart started pounding. Who's David? She looked at her phone, then at me. Friend. Friend who misses you already? It's not what you think. What do I think? You think I'm seeing someone. Are you? It's complicated. Complicated. The word that means yes, but doesn't want to admit it. How complicated? Clarence, we're not together anymore. What I do is my business. You're right, but you could have told me. Told you what? That you were seeing someone. Instead of letting me think we might get back together. Did you think that? Yeah, I did. She unplugged her phone and started gathering her things. I should go. Thanapa, wait. She stopped at the door. How long? How long what? How long have you been seeing him? She looked at me for a long moment, like she was deciding whether to tell the truth or another comfortable lie. Since before I moved out. The words hit me like a physical blow. Since before? Yes. While you were living here? While we were talking about opening a cafe together? Yes. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. Are you really sorry? Or are you just sorry I found out? I'm sorry you're hurt, but not sorry you did it. I'm sorry about how I did it, but not that you did it. She was quiet. How many others? What? David's not the only one, is he? Clarence. How many others, Thanapa? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Why? Why does it matter? Because I need to know how stupid I was. I need to know if anything between us was real or if I was just convenient. What we had was real. While you were fucking other people? Don't. Don't what? Don't ask questions? Don't care? Don't feel like an idiot for believing you when you said I was special? You are special. Just not special enough. That's not fair. You know what's not fair? Living with someone for a month while they're seeing other people. Talking about the future while they're making plans with someone else. That's not fair. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from David. She looked at it and smiled slightly before catching herself. Go, I said. He's waiting. Clarence. Go. Don't keep him waiting. I know how that feels. She left without another word. I stood in my doorway watching her disappear down the hallway, knowing I'd never see her the same way again. But the worst part wasn't that she'd been lying. The worst part was that some small, pathetic part of me still wanted her to come back. That night, I sat on my balcony drinking beer and thinking about all the signs I'd ignored. The phone calls, the new clothes, the unexplained money, the hotel receipt, the way she'd never quite answered any of my questions directly. I'd known. On some level, I'd known all along. But I'd chosen to believe the comfortable lies instead of the uncomfortable truth. Because being one of several was still better than being no one at all. I couldn't sleep for 3 days after finding out about David. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that smile. The one she'd given her phone when his message came through. The one she'd never given me. On the 4th day, I did something I'd never done before. I looked him up. It wasn't hard. Thanapa's Instagram was public, and David was all over it. Pictures of them at restaurants I couldn't afford. Beach trips to islands I'd never heard of. Him buying her jewelry that made my motorcycle gift look pathetic. David was everything I wasn't. 35 instead of 59. British accent, tech job. The kind of money that made paying for hotel rooms look casual instead of desperate. In the photos, Thanapa looked radiant, young, free. Like the woman I'd fallen in love with, but more. Like the version of herself she became when she wasn't pretending to be impressed by an aging American auto parts dealer. I scrolled through months of their relationship. Beach trips during the times she'd told me she was visiting family. Romantic dinners during her busy work nights. Shopping trips to Bangkok while she was supposedly delivering food. The worst part was seeing the timeline. Their first photo together was dated 3 months before she'd moved in with me. which meant David wasn't the rebound. I was. But even that wasn't the bottom. The bottom was when I found the other men. Buried in her tagged photos, mixed in with shots from David, were images with at least 2 other foreign men. One was older, maybe German based on the captions. Another looked Scandinavian, tall and blonde. All of them looked at her the same way I probably did, like she was the answer to questions they didn't know they were asking. I screenshotted everything. Not for blackmail or revenge, but because I needed proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that the feeling I'd had for months that I was missing pieces of a larger picture was real. Then I did something even more pathetic. I started following her. Not physically. Not at first, just digitally. I'd check her Instagram stories obsessively, trying to piece together her schedule. When she posted from a cafe in Jomtien, I'd wonder if she was meeting David. When she tagged herself at a hotel in Bangkok, I'd wonder if it was the German guy. After a week of this digital stalking, I graduated to the real thing. I was walking down Beach Road around sunset when I saw her motorcycle parked outside a hotel bar, the same Honda PCX I'd helped her buy. I should have kept walking. Instead, I found a coffee shop across the street and ordered something I didn't want. 20 minutes later, she walked out of the hotel with a man I didn't recognize. Not David, not the German or the Scandinavian from Instagram. Someone new. They got on her bike together, her arms wrapped around his waist, and drove off toward Jomtien. I sat in that coffee shop for another hour, staring at my untouched drink and trying to process what I'd seen. It wasn't just David. It wasn't just 2 or 3 men. It was a rotation, a system. That night, I called my old buddy Steve in Chiang Mai. We'd worked together back in Austin before I'd sold the business. "Clarence? How the hell are you, man?" "I've been better. What's going on?" I told him everything. The whole pathetic story from beginning to end. The motorcycle, the money, the lies, the discovery about David, what I'd seen that afternoon. Steve listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "You still there?" I asked. "Yeah, I'm here, just thinking." "About what?" "About how to tell you this without making you feel worse." "Tell me what?" "I know a girl named Thanapa." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean you know her?" "I mean I've seen her around Chiang Mai. At the expat bars, she's got a reputation." "What kind of reputation?" "The kind where smart guys know to keep their wallets closed." "She's been to Chiang Mai?" "More than once. Usually with different foreign guys. Word is she's got a circuit. Pattaya, Bangkok, Chiang Mai, maybe Phuket. Rotates between cities, rotates between men." Jesus. "I'm sorry, man. I should have said something when you first mentioned her name, but I wasn't sure it was the same girl. How many men are we talking about?" "I don't know exact numbers, but enough that people notice." "People notice?" "The expat community here isn't that big. When someone's working multiple relationships, word gets around." "Working?" "Come on, Clarence. You know what this is." I did know. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. "How long has this been going on?" "Couple years at least, maybe longer." "And she's good at it?" "Good enough that guys like you fall for it. Smart enough to keep everyone in different cities so they don't run into each other. Until now. Until now. After I hung up with Steve, I poured myself a whiskey and sat on my balcony. The city lights stretched out below me, thousands of people living their lives, and I felt completely alone. But the conversation with Steve had clarified something. This wasn't about love. It wasn't about connection or relationships or any of the things I'd thought it was about. This was business. And I'd been a customer without knowing it. The next day, I did something that surprised even me. I went to the hotel where I'd seen her with the mystery man. "Excuse me," I said to the desk clerk. "I'm looking for information about one of your guests." "I'm sorry, sir. We can't give out guest information." I pulled out a 1,000 baht note. "I'm not asking for details. I just need to know if someone was here yesterday around sunset." The clerk looked at the money, then at me. "What kind of information?" "A Thai woman, about 25, Came here with a foreign man. I need to know if he's staying here. Why? Because she's my girlfriend, and I'm starting to think she's lying to me. The clerk's expression softened. This was a story he'd probably heard before. What does she look like? I showed him a photo from my phone. Ah, Kun Thanapa. You know her? She comes here sometimes. Different men. How many different men? Maybe 3, 4. Always foreign. Always older. Are any of them staying here now? The German man, he stays here 1 week every month, has for maybe 6 months. What about yesterday? Yesterday was different, man. Not staying here. Just meeting for drinks. I handed him the 1,000 baht. Thank you. Walking back to my apartment, I felt like I was seeing Pattaya clearly for the first time. The bars full of older Western men. The young Thai women who seemed too interested in conversation. The whole ecosystem of loneliness and transaction that I'd somehow convinced myself I was above. But I wasn't above it. I was part of it. Just another lonely old man who'd confused attention with affection, convenience with love. That evening, the Napa called me. Hi, Clarence. Hi. How are you? I've been better. I heard you were asking about me at the Grand Palace Hotel. My blood went cold. Who told you that? Friend who works there, said farang man was showing my picture, asking questions. And I want to know why. Because I needed to know who I was sharing you with. You're not sharing me with anyone. Bullshit. Excuse me? I know about David. I know about the German guy. I know about the Scandinavian. I know about whoever was with you yesterday. Silence. How many, Thanapa? How many men are paying for the privilege of thinking they're special to you? It's not like that. Then what is it like? It's complicated. No, it's not. It's actually very simple. You're running a business, and I was too stupid to realize I was a customer. That's not true. Which part? You weren't just a customer. No. What was I then? You were. You were someone I cared about, but not enough to be honest with. I was honest about the things that mattered. Everything mattered to me, and that was the problem. Caring too much was the problem. Caring about things that weren't your business was the problem. We were both quiet for a moment. How many others are there? I asked. Does it really matter? Yes, it matters. Why? Because I need to know how completely I fooled myself. 3. 3 others, or 3 total including me? 3 others. Jesus Christ. They all know about each other. What? They all know about each other. You're the only one who thought he was exclusive. That hit harder than anything else she could have said. Why? Because you needed to believe you were special. The others just wanted company. And you? What did you want? Security. Independence. The ability to take care of myself without depending on one person for everything. So you depended on 4 people for something. Yes. And that felt better? It felt safer. Safer for who? For me. At least, she was being honest now. Where does this leave us? I asked. I don't know. Do you want to see me again? Do you want to see me again? I don't know if I can handle being one of 4. Then maybe we shouldn't see each other. Is that what you want? I want you to be happy. That's not what I asked. I want things to be easy between us. And they can't be easy if I know the truth. They can't be easy if you can't accept the truth. She was right. I couldn't accept it. I couldn't accept that the woman I'd fallen in love with was a carefully managed version of someone who lived entirely differently than I'd imagined. I need time to think, I said. Okay. Don't call me for a while. How long is a while? I don't know. I'll call you when I'm ready. Okay. Thanapa? Yeah? Were any of those moments real? When we were living together? When we talked about the cafe? When you said I was the only one who really saw you? They were real for me in those moments. But not real enough to change anything. No. Not real enough to change anything. That night, I deleted her number from my phone. Not because I didn't want to call her, but because I knew I would if I kept it. Then I sat on my balcony and tried to figure out who I was when I wasn't competing for the attention of a woman who was never really competing for. I was 59 years old, and I just learned that I didn't know the difference between love and loneliness. But at least now I knew. 3 weeks passed without contact. 3 weeks of waking up alone, eating meals alone, watching Netflix alone. It should have felt normal. I'd been alone for most of my adult life. But after tasting what I thought was connection, solitude felt different, heavier. I tried to stay busy, took Thai language lessons, joined a gym, even went on a few tours with other expats. But everything felt hollow. Like I was going through the motions of being a person while the actual person was somewhere else. On a Tuesday afternoon, while I was reading on my balcony, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Clarence? It's me. My heart started racing. Thanapa. Can we meet? I want to talk to you. About what? About us. About everything. I should have said no. Should have hung up and deleted this number too. But hearing her voice brought back everything I'd been trying to forget. Where? That cafe by Jomtien Beach. The one with the wooden tables on the sand. I knew the place. We'd gone there during our first week together, back when everything felt possible. When? Tomorrow evening? Around 6? Okay. Clarence? Yeah? Thank you. I spent the next 24 hours alternating between excitement and dread. What did she want to talk about? Was she ending things with the other men? Was she ending things with me? Was she just looking for closure? By the time I arrived at the cafe, I'd convinced myself this was a mistake. But she was already there, sitting at a table facing the ocean, wearing a white sundress I'd never seen before. She looked beautiful, peaceful, like someone who'd made an important decision. Hi, she said as I sat down across from her. Hi, you look good. Thanks. You too. We ordered drinks and sat in awkward silence for a few minutes. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was exactly the kind of romantic setting that would have made me hopeful a few months ago. So, I said finally, what did you want to talk about? I've been thinking about what you said, about being honest, and I think you deserve to know everything. My stomach tightened. Everything? About how this started, about why I do what I do, about what you meant to me. Okay. She took a sip of her iced tea and looked out at the water. I came to Pattaya 3 years ago with nothing. No money, no connections, no skills, except speaking some English and knowing how to survive. Survive? My father died when I was 16. My mother works in a factory in Ubon, makes maybe 8,000 baht a month. Not enough to support my younger brother and sister. So I came here to send money home. Doing delivery work? At first, yes. But delivery work doesn't pay enough. Not for what my family needs. So you found other work. I found men who were lonely. Men who had money and wanted company. How many men? In 3 years? Maybe 20, 25. But never more than 4 at once. That's too many to manage properly. The casual way she said it made my chest ache. And I was just another one of them? At first, yes. But not later? Later you became something different. Different how? You made me want things I'd convinced myself I didn't need. Like what? Like honesty. Like waking up next to the same person every day. Like planning for something beyond next month. But not enough to give up the others. I tried. What do you mean you tried? When I moved in with you, I tried to end things with David and Klaus and Eric. Klaus and Eric? The German and the Norwegian. You tried to end things. I told them I was getting serious with someone, that I needed space. What happened? They didn't believe me. They thought I was trying to get more money out of them. Were you? No. I really wanted to try with you. So what changed? Klaus threatened to tell everyone about me. He knows people in the expat community. Said he'd make sure I never worked in Pattaya again. So you kept seeing him? I kept seeing all of them. but it felt different, like I was cheating on you instead of cheating on them. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was scared you'd leave. And now? Now I'm scared you'll stay. I didn't understand. What do you mean? I mean, I can't be the woman you want me to be. I can't be honest and safe at the same time. And I can't choose between honesty and safety. What if I could help you be safe? What if you didn't need the others? You can't help me, Clarence. Why not? Because it's not about money anymore. Then what's it about? It's about not depending on one person for everything. It's about not putting all my security in hands that might let go. My hands wouldn't let go. You don't know that. Yes, I do. No, you don't. You can't promise that. No one can. We sat in silence as the sun touched the horizon. The beach was filling up with other couples watching the sunset. Young backpackers, older expats with their Thai partners. Everyone seemed to know something we didn't. So where does this leave us? I asked. I don't know. Do you love me? The question hung in the air between us. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. I love the way you make me feel when I'm with you. That's not the same thing. No, it's not. Do you love any of them? No. But you can't choose me over them. I can't choose anyone over survival. And that's what they represent? Survival? Yes. What do I represent? She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. You represent the life I wish I could have. But can't. But won't. Why won't you? Because I've seen what happens to girls who put everything on one man. They end up with nothing when he leaves. And he always leaves. I wouldn't leave. That's what they all say. Did they? Did David and Klaus and Eric all promise they wouldn't leave? They promised other things. Money, security, good times. None of them promised forever. I would. I know. That's what scares me. I reached across the table and took her hand. She didn't pull away, but she didn't squeeze back either. Thanapa, I love you. I know. And you can't love me back because it would be too dangerous. I can't love you back because I don't know how to do that without losing myself. What if you didn't have to lose yourself? There's no version of loving you that doesn't require me to give up the others. And there's no version of giving up the others that doesn't put my entire life in your hands. And you can't trust me with your life. I can't trust anyone with my life. Her phone buzzed on the table between us. She glanced at it, and I saw her expression change slightly. Not the smile she'd given David's message, but a subtle shift, like someone calling her back to reality. You have to go, I said. Not right away, but soon. Soon. Who is it? Klaus. He's flying back to Germany tomorrow. Wants to see me tonight. And you're going to see him? Yes. Even after this conversation. Especially after this conversation. I let go of her hand. I don't understand. This conversation reminds me why I can't afford to depend on just one person. Even you. Especially you. Because I'd want all of you. Because you'd want all of me, and I'd want to give it to you. And that would be bad? That would be dangerous. We sat in silence as the sun disappeared completely. The beach was getting darker. Couples starting to pack up their things and head back to hotels or restaurants or whatever came next in their lives. I should go, she said, gathering her purse. Thanapa. Yeah? If things were different, if you didn't have family to support, if you didn't need the security, would you choose me? She stood up but didn't move away from the table. If things were different, I wouldn't be the person you fell in love with. What does that mean? It means the things that make you love, me independence, my strength, my ability to take care of myself, those things exist because of the life I've had to live. So I love you because of the other men. You love me because of what the other men taught me I needed to survive. And you can't unlearn that. I don't want to unlearn that. She leaned down and kissed my forehead. A gentle, final kind of kiss. Thank you for dinner. Will I see you again? Do you want to? Yes. Even knowing nothing will change? I don't know. When you know, call me. She walked away across the sand, her white dress catching the last light from the restaurant. I watched until she disappeared into the parking area, then sat there for another hour, nursing a beer I didn't want and trying to process what had just happened. She'd been honest with me, finally, completely honest. And the truth was worse than any lie she could have told, because the truth was that she wasn't choosing the others over me. She was choosing survival over love. And that was a choice I couldn't compete with. When I finally got up to leave, I found myself walking along the beach instead of heading back to the parking lot. The sand was cool under my feet, and the sound of the waves was the only thing keeping me from feeling completely alone. I thought about calling her, about going to Klaus's hotel and making some grand gesture, about offering her enough money to make the others unnecessary, but I knew it wouldn't work. Because this wasn't about money, it was about trust, and she'd learned not to trust anyone with everything. Maybe she was right. Maybe the woman I'd fallen in love with only existed because of the life she'd had to live. Maybe there was no version of her that could love me the way I wanted to be loved. Or maybe I was asking for too much. Maybe wanting all of someone was just another form of selfishness. I walked until I reached the end of the beach, then turned around and walked back. By the time I got to my motorcycle, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to call her. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when I thought I could handle being one of four, because she'd been right about something else. I couldn't accept the truth. I couldn't share her. And that meant I couldn't have her. Driving home through the neon-lit streets of Pattaya, I felt like I was seeing the city clearly for the first time. The bars, the massage parlors, the hotels where men like me came to find something they'd lost or never had, it wasn't a bad place. It wasn't a good place. It was just a place where people traded loneliness for company, and everyone pretended the transaction was something else. I'd been pretending too. Pretending that what I felt for Thanapa was different from what the other men felt. That my money and attention meant something special. That I could save her from a life she'd never asked to be saved from. But she didn't need saving. She needed space to breathe, like she'd said. And I needed to learn the difference between love and possession. The apartment felt different when I got home. Not empty, but spacious, like a place where someone could think clearly without worrying about explaining themselves. I poured myself a whiskey and sat on the balcony, looking out over the city lights. Somewhere out there, Thanapa was having dinner with Klaus. Somewhere else, David was probably wondering when he'd see her next. And in Germany and Norway, men were transferring money and counting days until their next visits. It was a system. It worked for everyone involved, as long as no one asked for more than they were entitled to. I'd asked for more, and that was my mistake, not hers. 3 months later, I sold the motorcycle. Not because I needed the money, but because every time I looked at it, I thought about her hands on my waist, her laughter in my ear, as we rode to beaches and restaurants that now felt like archaeological sites from someone else's life. The buyer was a young German tourist who just arrived in Pattaya. He was maybe 25, excited about everything, talking about all the places he wanted to explore. Great bike for getting around the city, I told him as he handed over the cash. Perfect. My girlfriend back home is coming to visit next month. We'll ride everywhere together. I didn't tell him that girlfriends back home have a way of becoming footnotes when you're living in Thailand. I just gave him the keys and wished him luck. After he drove away, I walked down to the beach. It was late afternoon, the time when the day tourists start heading back to their hotels and the sunset crowd hasn't arrived yet. The beach was almost empty except for a few vendors packing up their chairs and umbrellas. I found a spot on the sand and sat down to watch the waves. This had become my routine over the past few months, walking, sitting, thinking, trying to understand what had happened to me and why it still hurt. The pain wasn't constant anymore. It came in waves, triggered by small things, a motorcycle that sounded like hers, a woman laughing in Thai, the smell of jasmine mixed with exhaust. For a few seconds, I'd forget that she was gone, and the remembering would hit like a physical blow. but the waves were getting smaller, less frequent. Some days, I could go hours without thinking about her. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter Pam back in Austin. "How are you doing, Dad? Haven't heard from you in a while." I typed back, "Doing well, enjoying the weather. Still glad you moved there?" I looked out at the ocean, at the palm trees swaying in the breeze, at the life I'd built for myself in this strange place. Yeah, still glad. It wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either. Thailand had given me something I'd needed, even if it wasn't what I'd expected. It had shown me that I could still feel deeply, that I wasn't too old or too cynical for my heart to break, that even at 59, I was still capable of surprise. "Meeting anyone interesting?" Pam texted. "Focusing on myself right now." "Good for you." She didn't know about Thanapa, didn't know about any of it. How do you explain to your adult daughter that you fell in love with a woman who was seeing 3 other men? How do you admit that you'd been willing to share someone just to avoid being alone? Maybe someday I'd tell her. When enough time had passed, that it felt like a story instead of a wound. That evening I walked through the night market in Jomtien, the same market where Thanapa and I had bought fruit and street food, where she'd taught me to bargain in Thai, where she'd laughed at my pronunciation of "my pen rai." I expected it to hurt, being there without her. But instead, it felt peaceful, like visiting the grave of someone you'd loved who died peacefully. Sad, but not devastating. At a fruit stand, the vendor recognized me. "Hello, mister. Where is your lady friend?" "She's not coming anymore." "Ah, too bad. She was very nice." Yes, she was. I bought some mangoes and continued walking. The vendor's easy acceptance of Thanapa's absence struck me as very Thai. No follow-up questions, no expressions of sympathy, just acknowledgement and movement forward. Maybe that was what I needed to learn. How to acknowledge what had happened without dwelling on it. How to move forward without forgetting. A week later, I ran into Steve from Chiang Mai at a coffee shop near my apartment. He was in Pattaya for a few days visiting friends. "Clarence, how the hell are you?" "Better than the last time we talked." "Good to hear. How's the situation with that girl?" "Over." "Sorry, man." "Don't be. It needed to end." We grabbed a table and caught up on each other's lives. Steve was seeing someone new, a teacher from Bangkok who came up to Chiang Mai on weekends. "Is it serious?" I asked. "Getting there, but I'm taking it slow. Learning from other people's mistakes, you know." "My mistakes?" "Among others. The expat dating scene here is complicated. Easy to get caught up in something that isn't what it seems. Any advice for someone thinking about getting back out there? You thinking about it? Maybe, eventually. My advice? Be honest about what you want and what you can handle. If you want a traditional relationship, find someone who wants the same thing. If you want something casual, be clear about that. But don't try to turn one into the other." Sounds reasonable. Also, don't fall in love with potential. Fall in love with what actually is. That hit close to home. What do you mean? I mean, don't fall for the woman someone could become if circumstances were different. Fall for the woman who's sitting across from you right now, living the life she's chosen to live. I thought about Thanapa, about all the times I'd imagined her differently. Without the other men, without the need for security, without the walls she'd built to protect herself. "I think I fell in love with a ghost," I said. "We all do that sometimes." "How do you stop?" "You start seeing people as they are instead of as you want them to be. And you decide whether you can love what actually is." That night, I did something I hadn't done since the beach cafe conversation. I looked at Thanapa's Instagram. She looked happy, healthy. There were new photos with David, a trip to Koh Samui, pictures with friends I didn't recognize. No sign of Klaus or Eric, but that didn't mean they weren't still part of the rotation. There was one photo that stopped me. It was just her, sitting alone at a cafe in Bangkok, smiling at something off camera. The caption was in Thai, but Google Translate rendered it as, "Sometimes the best company is yourself." I stared at that photo for a long time. She looked genuinely content, not performing for anyone, not trying to be what someone else needed, just herself, in a moment of solitude. Maybe that was what she'd been trying to tell me all along, that she was happy with her life the way it was, that she didn't need to be saved or changed or convinced to choose differently. Maybe the tragedy wasn't that I'd lost her. Maybe the tragedy was that I'd never really seen her. I closed Instagram and opened my laptop. For the first time since moving to Thailand, I started writing. Not a journal entry or an email, just words, memories. The story of what had happened to me here. I wrote about the first night she delivered food to my apartment, about the kiss on the balcony, about the month we'd lived together and the morning I'd found the hotel receipt, about the phone calls and the lies and the moment I'd realized I was one of 4. I wrote about the beach cafe and her white dress and the way she'd explained her life without apologizing for it. I wrote until the sun came up, purging everything I'd been holding inside for months. When I finished, I had 40 pages of raw, honest confession. It wasn't pretty, it didn't make me look good, but it was true. I saved the file and made coffee. As I sat on my balcony watching Pattaya wake up, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not happiness, not satisfaction, just peace. I'd loved someone who couldn't love me back the way I needed. She'd been honest about who she was and what she could offer. I'd been the one who'd wanted more than was available. That didn't make me stupid. It made me human. And maybe that was enough. 2 weeks later, I got an unexpected phone call. "Clarence? Thanapa. How are you?" "I'm good. You?" "Good. Listen, I wanted to tell you something." "Okay. I'm leaving Pattaya." My heart jumped. "Where are you going?" "Back to Ubon. My mother is sick. I need to be with family." "I'm sorry to hear that." "It's okay. She'll be fine. But I want to take care of her for a while." "What about everything else?" "You mean the work?" "Yeah. I'm done with that. Saved enough money. Time for something different." "That's good." "Clarence?" "Yeah?" "I want you to know that what we had was real. Maybe not the way you wanted it to be real, but real for me." "I know. Do you?" "Yeah, I do now." "Good." We were quiet for a moment. "Will you be happy?" I asked. "I think so. Different kind of happy, but yes." "Good. You too?" "I think so too." "Good." After we hung up, I sat on my balcony and thought about endings. How they don't always come when you expect them. How sometimes they arrive disguised as beginnings. Thanapa was going home to take care of her mother. I was staying in Pattaya to take care of myself. Both of us moving towards something that felt right, even if it wasn't what we'd originally planned. That evening, I walked down to the beach where we'd had our last conversation. The cafe was busy with tourists and couples watching the sunset. I ordered a beer and found a table with a view of the water. As the sun touched the horizon, I raised my glass in a silent toast. To Thanapa, wherever she was. To the months we'd shared, to the lessons we'd taught each other, intentionally or not. To the ghost of what could have been and the reality of what was. The sun disappeared into the ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Another day ending, another one beginning. I finished my beer and walked home, ready for whatever came next.